Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 401, Letting the Cat Out of the Bag. Are you sure the Sage of Six Paths you mentioned will really come out? Kushina yawned and asked Shin. Let's go. That old geezer is more cunning than I thought. Shin shook his head in disappointment. Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki, who had died earlier, were now alive again. Hagoromo Otsutsuki had indeed saved them. However, Hagoromo Otsutsuki hadn't come personally. He had left chakra within them long ago, hidden very deeply. This time, he had used that chakra to save them. I should have checked Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha earlier. Shin felt he had miscalculated. If he had carefully examined them, even if Hagoromo Otsutsuki's chakra was well hidden, Shin would have been able to detect it. But Shin hadn't come away empty-handed. At least he now knew that Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha were very important to Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Otherwise, Hagoromo wouldn't have revived them. It seemed he still needed to keep an eye on Naruto and Sasuke in the future. Shin had also left a little something behind. When he killed Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, he had placed spatial markers within them. No matter where they ran, Shin could find them. He felt Hagoromo Otsutsuki's motives weren't simple. He couldn't judge him based on the original story. In a dim, gloomy space, an old man clad in white robes with two horns on his head opened his eyes. His purple Rinnegan were particularly striking. Hamura Otsutsuki's disappearance, was that your doing too, Shin Uzumaki? Hagoromo Otsutsuki's face showed a hint of apprehension. No matter what, I hope you don't disrupt my plans. Or, Hagoromo Otsutsuki's killing intent flared. Though he very much wanted to eliminate that variable, Hagoromo Otsutsuki couldn't ascertain Shin's true strength. Hamura Otsutsuki had presumably died at his hands, so he dared not act recklessly. If he had been confident, he would have acted long ago. He hadn't expected such a troublesome individual to emerge after so long of not paying attention to the shinobi world. Though Hagoromo Otsutsuki paid attention to changes in the shinobi world over 1,000 years, he couldn't monitor it constantly. Sometimes, he only observed the shinobi world once every few decades, or even centuries. He hadn't anticipated that during his slumber, such a troublesome variable, one that could potentially affect his plans, would appear. Logically, it was impossible for a Six Paths level individual to appear in the shinobi world unless someone became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, or he personally intervened. He didn't know the situation. Precisely because he didn't understand, he dared not act. The older one gets, the more cautious one becomes. Unless absolutely necessary, Hagoromo Otsutsuki didn't want to personally intervene. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha. I hope you can clear all obstacles for me, Hagoromo Otsutsuki muttered to himself. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha were the blades he had designated, blades to cut through thorns for him. At the Akatsuki base, Nagato was somewhat dumbfounded, especially looking at the Nine Tails before him. He felt quite bewildered. You brought the Nine Tails back too? Pain asked Shin. Nagato had originally planned to gather all Akatsuki members to capture the Nine Tails in the end. Yes, the current Nagato had no intention of facing the Nine Tails alone. The original plan was to gather the Akatsuki and launch a full-scale assault on Konoha to seize the Nine Tails. The plan wasn't even supposed to be executed yet, and Shin had already brought the Nine Tails back. This is only half of the Nine Tails, Shin said. Half? Pain was confused. This was clearly the entire Nine Tails. Why did Shin say it was only half? Regarding this matter, just ask Obito Uchiha, and you'll know. Shin had no time to answer Pain's questions. Who is Obito Uchiha? Pain asked again. This time, he felt it might involve some secrets. Oops, looks like I let the cat out of the bag. Shin realized he might have slipped up. Pain, of course, wouldn't know who Obito Uchiha was. Obito Uchiha is Madara Uchiha. Letting it slip didn't matter. So what if he told Pain directly? If Obito had any problems, he could just come find Shin and settle it. Pain, upon hearing this, froze for a moment. To be precise, Nagato was somewhat slow to react. After a long while, Nagato finally processed it and understood. So, that masked man really isn't Madara Uchiha. He had suspected it for a long time, even disbelieving it from the start. Now, he finally knew the other's true identity. Though Nagato didn't know Obito Uchiha, knowing his real identity meant he could investigate. However, this investigation would likely have to be done by himself. Normally, matters of investigation were best left to Zetsu, but Nagato didn't trust Zetsu at all. Zetsu was likely aligned with Madara Uchiha, no, with Obito Uchiha. Zetsu was on Obito Uchiha's side, not his. Thank you, Pain said to Shin. Regardless of whether Shin had intentionally let it slip or not, he had to thank him. Thank me? Shin smiled, then shook his head. No need to thank me. Actually, knowing this might not be a good thing for you. The Nine Tails is yours now. Don't let it escape. If it does, well, you know what'll happen. Before leaving, Shin reminded Pain. If the Nine Tails went berserk, he didn't know if Nagato could suppress it. Hopefully, Nagato wasn't that useless. As for sealing it into the demonic statue of the outer path, that wouldn't work. The sealing had to be done in order from One Tail to Nine Tails. Currently, only the One Tail and Two Tails had been sealed. The Three Tails and Four Tails Shin had delivered hadn't been sealed yet. And the rest hadn't even been captured. So, the Nine Tails had to be guarded at the Akatsuki base for a while. Hearing Shin's impolite words, Nagato felt somewhat uncomfortable but said nothing. Though confident in his own strength, Nagato truly wasn't confident enough to defeat Shin Uzumaki. I won't let the Nine Tails escape, Pain said coolly. In the original story, Nagato being defeated by Naruto was basically plot armor. In terms of strength, Naruto actually had no chance of winning against Nagato. After Shin and Kushina left, the Nine Tails was freed from Shin's control, its fierce eyes scanning its surroundings. Is that the 10 Tails? The Nine Tails, seeing the demonic statue of the outer path nearby, was so frightened it took several steps back, warily staring at the statue. This was likely what the Nine Tails feared most. Seeing it made it want to run. Behave yourself. Chapter 402, This is called Karma. Pain's indifferent eyes stared at the Nine Tails. He raised his hand, preparing to subdue the Nine Tails. How do you possess the Rinnegan? The Nine Tails looked at Pain's eyes, utterly shocked. How could someone else have the Rinnegan? Wasn't that something only the old geezer, the Sage of Six Paths, possessed? Pain didn't answer, using the Rinnegan's ocular power to control the Nine Tails. Yes, not only the Sharingan, but the Rinnegan could also control tailed beasts. After all, the Rinnegan was an evolution of the Sharingan. Pain, however, realized he'd have to maintain constant control, which would drain his ocular power. He had no other choice, though. Without the Rinnegan's suppression, the Nine Tails would break free. Ready to head back? Shin asked Kushina. Pretty much. We can go back. I'm starting to miss Makoto's cooking a bit. Kushina, thinking of Makoto's cooking, couldn't help but feel a little hungry. Shin also breathed a sigh of relief. These past few days out, Shin had been responsible for cooking. Though Shin preferred eating at restaurants, Kushina insisted, wanting Shin to cook for her. Helpless, Shin could only take on the cooking duties. Now that they were going back, Shin finally wouldn't have to cook anymore. He suddenly felt liberated. Looking at how happy you are you eager to go back right away? Kushina, seeing Shin's rather excited expression, immediately became dissatisfied. To be precise, she was jealous. I've been out with you for so many days already. Isn't that enough? Shin pinched Kushina's cheek, then took her back to the land of whirlpools. Ah, this fresh air. Upon returning, Kushina took a deep breath and exclaimed. Fresh air? Is this air any different from the air outside? Shin glanced at Kushina. Shin didn't feel the air in the land of whirlpools was any better than outside, it was practically the same. What do you know? This is the smell of home. You big unromantic dolt. Kushina shot Shin a disdainful look, then pushed open the courtyard gate and walked in. I'll show you what unromantic means tonight. Just wait. Shin followed closely behind. Returning home, several pairs of eyes stared at Shin and Kushina. In Tsunade and the others' gazes, Shin clearly sensed killing intent. Ahem. Shin coughed twice, then poured himself a glass of water to calm down. Don't drink first. First, tell us, what exactly do you two mean by sneaking off like that? Tsunade slammed the table, instantly shattering it. That poor table. You broke it again, Shin clutched his chest dramatically. However, Shin immediately received several eye rolls. Just a table. With 3 would release users here, what are few tables? Shin, are you trying to change the subject? Makoto, who knew Shin best, stood up and walked gracefully towards Shin. Makoto, what do you want? Shin looked at Makoto warily. Before Shin could finish his question, Makoto pounced on him and bit him. Humph. This is the price. After leaving a neat set of teeth marks on Shin's arm, Makoto huffed lightly. Did you learn this from Kushina? Shin looked at the teeth marks on his arm, then deliberately glanced at Kushina. Hey! I don't bite people. Don't drag me into this. Kushina looked indignant. Heh, right. Shin didn't speak, just chuckled. The meaning of his chuckle was self-evident. Actually, this has nothing to do with me. It was Shin. Kushina made me sneak out with her. I couldn't help it. Knowing Kushina would definitely try to pin everything on him, Shin directly interrupted her and pushed the blame back. No, it wasn't pushing blame, it was the truth. Kushina had dragged him out. Damn it! Kushina gritted her teeth. Shin smiled faintly at Kushina, not bothered by her annoyance. Haha, do you think we'll let either of you off? Tsunade chuckled. Neither of you will escape. Tsunade had no intention of letting either of them off the hook. That's right. Sneaking off was both your faults. You both deserve to be punished. Mei Terumi nodded. Then what do you plan to do? Are you going to hit me? Shin asked, putting on a brave face. Since you asked so nicely. Tsunade's fists rained down on Shin like hailstones. She really did attack Shin. Shin, getting beaten up, looked utterly frustrated. Then he discovered that Mei Terumi, Konan, and even that woman Kushina were all sneak attacking him. 10 minutes later, Shin, who had been impeccably dressed, looked worse than a beggar. Sigh, my hair. Shin smoothed his messy hair. Head can be broken, blood can flow, but hairstyle cannot be messed up. Serves you right. If they said that, I wouldn't mind. But you, Kushina? Really? Shin glared at Kushina. Kushina, are you trying to blend in with us to avoid punishment? Makoto looked at Kushina with deep meaning. She knew Kushina well. Kushina's expression froze slightly. Ah ha ha. Of course not. I was just condemning Shin's actions. What right do you have to condemn? Shin stood up and gave her a few good whacks. Alright, take her away. I've already sealed her chakra. Do whatever you want, no need to hold back. Shin said with a smile. Yes, just now Shin had used the gentle fist's pressure point technique to seal Kushina's chakra. What? Kushina was shocked. Only then did she realize her body's chakra was truly sealed. Now, even if she wanted to resist, she lacked the ability. Shin, I'm sorry. Kushina immediately apologized. Apologizing now is a bit late, isn't it? Though I'd like to help you, they're not going to forgive you. Call it karma, Shin said, grinning mischievously. Sob sob. Makoto, we're best friends, right? So? Kushina couldn't finish her words. Makoto had already taken out some tape from nearby and sealed Kushina's mouth. Shin looked at Kushina with satisfaction, feeling particularly pleased. Chapter 403, Sasuke vs Orochimaru. Humph. Don't sit here with me. Kushina angrily pushed Shin away, then turned her head with a huff. 2 days had passed since Shin and Kushina returned. Kushina, whose chakra had been sealed by Shin earlier, had been thoroughly bullied by Tsunade and the others. Even if her chakra hadn't been sealed, Kushina couldn't have fought off the combined forces of Makoto, Tsunade, and the others, let alone with her chakra sealed. After being bullied, Kushina started sulking at Shin. Fine, I won't sit with you then. I'll sit with Makoto. Shin smiled faintly, stood up, walked over to Makoto, sat down beside her, and then pulled Makoto into his embrace, kissing her and shooting Kushina a smug look. Makoto also cooperated, winking provocatively at Kushina. Ah! I want to beat you two up right now. Kushina felt a surge of sourness in her heart, as if she had eaten a lemon. Kushina angrily waved her small fists, punching towards Shin. Though her punches looked fierce, they had no force when they landed on Shin. Shin actually quite enjoyed it. Kushina's punches felt like a comfortable massage. Here, hit my back a few times too. Let you vent some anger, Shin said to Kushina. Deliberately angering me, aren't you? I'll bite you to death. Kushina got angrier the more she thought about it, then transformed into a little puppy and bit Shin's arm. Shin lived a carefree life in the land of whirlpools. Meanwhile, at Orochimaru's base, a lively scene was unfolding. Sasuke Uchiha, radiating killing intent, walked into Orochimaru's room, looking at Orochimaru, who had transformed into a giant white serpent. Sasuke-kun's not here for a friendly chat, is he? Orochimaru naturally sensed the killing intent emanating from Sasuke Uchiha. But he didn't care. Sasuke Uchiha, this reincarnation vessel, was finally fully developed. After being killed by Shin Uzumaki that day, Orochimaru thought he'd lost Sasuke after Shin killed him. Unexpectedly, Sasuke Uchiha, whom he thought was dead, had mysteriously revived. Even Orochimaru didn't know how Sasuke Uchiha had come back to life. And most importantly, the revived Sasuke Uchiha had actually awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Yes, Sasuke Uchiha, who should have only awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan after the battle between brothers in the original story, had awakened it now. Because he was revived by the Sage of Six Paths means, the Indra Chakra hidden within Sasuke Uchiha's body was reawakening. Relying on this power, Sasuke Uchiha had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. After Sasuke Uchiha awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, Orochimaru didn't act immediately. He planned to recuperate first, then perform the reincarnation. After all, being suppressed by Kushina's Gate of the Great God, Orochimaru himself had suffered considerable injuries and needed to recover. And Sasuke Uchiha seized the opportunity while Orochimaru was recovering to make his move. As for the reason, naturally, Orochimaru was no longer of any value. Orochimaru, who had nothing left to teach him, could now be killed. Lightning Release, Chidori Blade. His Kusanagi blade was infused with lightning release chakra, then thrust towards Orochimaru. Not even a greeting before attacking me. Sasuke Uchiha, you've truly changed. Orochimaru's eyes turned cold. He spat out a Kusanagi blade from his mouth, blocking Sasuke Uchiha's. There was more than one Kusanagi blade. Shin, Orochimaru, and Sasuke Uchiha all possessed one. You managed to block my slash. Not bad, Sasuke Uchiha said coolly. Showing off. Sasuke Uchiha was showing off a bit now. After all, no matter how weak Orochimaru was, he couldn't possibly be unable to block his slash. Looks like you've forgotten who taught you. Even though Orochimaru harbored ill intentions towards Sasuke Uchiha, he was still quite angered by Sasuke attacking him now. Orochimaru also hadn't expected Sasuke Uchiha to show no sentimentality at all, attacking him directly. He felt particularly uncomfortable. Orochimaru's main body transformed into a giant white serpent. Though large, it was quite agile, spewing countless small snakes from its mouth to attack Sasuke Uchiha. Shin didn't know if Orochimaru's mouth was some kind of interdimensional space, capable of spitting out anything. But it was indeed a bit disgusting. Sasuke Uchiha calmly honed his ninjutsu and swordsmanship, using Orochimaru as his whetstone. He's stronger. Much stronger. Orochimaru wondered. He knew Sasuke Uchiha's previous level. If they fought, Orochimaru was confident he could take down Sasuke Uchiha in a few dozen moves. But now, Sasuke Uchiha's strength had increased somewhat unscientifically. After being killed once, the revived Sasuke Uchiha's strength had actually increased so much? Was there a benefit to being killed? Even Orochimaru couldn't help but want to die once and revive. But Orochimaru also knew this was impossible. He didn't even know how Sasuke Uchiha had revived. Orochimaru had no confidence he could revive himself after dying. Just like in the original story, though Orochimaru was an unkillable cockroach, reviving after death, if no one actively revived Orochimaru, he couldn't come back from the dead. Let me show you the Uchiha clan's ultimate dojutsu. Sasuke Uchiha, after being forced back by the swarm of snakes, activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. His evil, demonic Mangekyo Sharingan stared at Orochimaru. A greedy glint flashed in Orochimaru's eyes. As long as I reincarnate into Sasuke Uchiha, I'll have a chance to obtain Itachi Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan and evolve it into the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. If he obtained the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he wouldn't be some minor figure anymore. Though he wasn't a minor figure now, he felt somewhat insignificant in front of Shin Uzumaki. Amaterasu. Pitch-black flames erupted, engulfing the countless snakes, instantly reducing them to ashes. This was the terror of Amaterasu's black flames. And as long as the target wasn't burned to ashes, it would absolutely not extinguish. Water couldn't extinguish it either. Blaze release, Kagetsuchi. After using Amaterasu, Sasuke then used another dojutsu, controlling the Amaterasu black flames, transforming them into weapons to attack Orochimaru. Looks like I can't wait any longer. Orochimaru's pupils constricted. He ignored Amaterasu and charged towards Sasuke. He was going to begin the reincarnation. He transferred his entire spirit and soul into Sasuke Uchiha's body, then fought Sasuke Uchiha for control of the body. At this moment, Orochimaru hadn't considered at all whether he could win against Sasuke Uchiha. Chapter 404, Itachi Uchiha releases the Nine Tails. Sasuke Uchiha and Orochimaru engaged in a battle of souls. In the end, Sasuke Uchiha, relying on his Mangekyo Sharingan, emerged victorious. In this aspect, Orochimaru's tattered soul was no match for Sasuke Uchiha, who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. What was the Sharingan? It was a power belonging to Yin Release. And Yin Release was spiritual power, the Uchiha clan's greatest strength. Attacking an opponent's strength with one's own weakness, it was normal for Orochimaru to fail. However, Orochimaru hadn't completely died. A part of his soul still lay dormant within Sasuke Uchiha's body, waiting for Sasuke Uchiha to weaken, then it would contend with him for control of the body again. Sasuke Uchiha, believing he had already killed Orochimaru, left Orochimaru's secret base. After a long while, Kabuto Yakushi arrived looking at the lifeless giant white serpent. He understood Orochimaru had failed. Kabuto Yakushi took away the giant white serpent body Orochimaru had left behind, then also left the base, vanishing without a trace. No one knew that Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, had perished. Even if not truly perished, he was at least temporarily gone. At this very moment, a major event occurred within the Akatsuki. Pain stared coldly at Itachi Uchiha. Itachi Uchiha, I need an explanation. Other Akatsuki members were also present, but they all remained silent, knowing the leader was truly angry. There's nothing to explain. I am a Konoha spy, Itachi Uchiha stated calmly. I see. Killing intent overflowed from Pain. Actually, Pain had known from the beginning that Itachi Uchiha was a spy. Back then, Madara Uchiha no, Obito Uchiha had told him and warned him to pay special attention to Itachi Uchiha. Because of this, Pain did indeed pay close attention to Itachi Uchiha. But after so long, some negligence was inevitable. And it was precisely this negligence that led to Itachi Uchiha causing a major incident. He actually released the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails had been properly controlled by him. But Itachi Uchiha used his ocular power to forcibly help the Nine Tails break free, and then the Nine Tails escaped, and Itachi Uchiha, having immediately drawn Pain's attention, naturally didn't escape. Moreover, Itachi had no intention of escaping. If he also fled, Pain would definitely pursue the Nine Tails, and it would be in danger. So, Itachi Uchiha sacrificed himself, giving the Nine Tails a chance to escape. The reason he did this was because he didn't want to see the Akatsuki's plan succeed. Itachi Uchiha's goal was to stop the Akatsuki's plan. Sigh. Kisame Hashigaki sighed. Though he had a good relationship with Itachi, he definitely couldn't help him this time. Itachi Uchiha had already admitted he was an undercover spy. What more was there to say? Even Kisame Hashigaki had to act, joining forces against Itachi Uchiha. This is going to be a good show. Hayden looked like he was enjoying the drama. Hayden didn't like Itachi Uchiha. The more misfortune Itachi suffered, the better. I heard the Nine Tails escaped? Just then, Shin appeared at the Akatsuki base. Shin had obtained this intel from White Zetsu. White Zetsu figured the Nine Tails was captured by Shin, and news of its escape, he had to inform Shin. So White Zetsu notified Shin, and Shin came to the Akatsuki base to see what was going on. How long had it been? Shin had already labeled Nagato a failure. Sensing Shin's gaze, Pain showed no expression, but Nagato's true body felt his face burn with shame. He had just assured Shin there would be no problems, yet now the Nine Tails was gone. Shin quickly learned the details of what happened. Itachi Uchiha had intervened, causing the Nine Tails to escape. Itachi Uchiha, you released the Nine Tails I captured? Shin's gaze turned towards Itachi Uchiha. His indifferent gaze made the people around feel considerable pressure. Traces of blood seeped from Itachi Uchiha's eyes. Releasing the Nine Tails hadn't come without a price. His ocular power was heavily consumed, placing a great burden on his Sharingan. At this moment, Itachi Uchiha appeared very calm. From the moment he released the Nine Tails, Itachi Uchiha hadn't expected to survive. Looking at the silent Itachi Uchiha, Shin shook his head and said, "You are quite loyal to Konoha." Shin knew very well that Itachi Uchiha released the Nine Tails entirely for the sake of Konoha. Shin Uzumaki, you should know that the Akatsuki's plan will ultimately trigger a war that engulfs the entire shinobi world. Itachi Uchiha turned his gaze to Shin and said, "Telling me this is meaningless. Whether the shinobi world erupts in war or not, it means nothing to me." Shin chuckled coolly. Even if a shinobi world war broke out, how would it affect him? Shin didn't have those concerns about the country and its people. As long as he cared for himself and those around him, that was enough. Narrow-minded. Itachi Uchiha frowned. He felt Shin Uzumaki was too narrow-minded, just like the Uchiha clan. You're hardly qualified to criticize others. Shin didn't care what Itachi Uchiha said. It wasn't that his personality was magnanimous, but Itachi Uchiha was a dead man today. There was no need to get angry with a dying person. Shin Uzumaki, leave Itachi Uchiha to me, Pain said to Shin. As the Akatsuki leader, he had the right to clean house. Oh? Be my guest. Just don't embarrass yourself. That would be disappointing. Shin was also looking forward to the battle between Pain and Itachi Uchiha. Alright, everyone, place your bets. I'm the bookie. Itachi wins 10-1 odds. Pain wins even odds. Any takers? Shin asked the other Akatsuki members with a smile. Shindano, that's pointless. Leader will definitely win. If everyone bets on him, you'll lose everything, Deidara said to Shin. Kakuzu, hearing Shin's words, was somewhat tempted. He also knew Pain would definitely win, but he didn't dare win Shin's money. So, in the end, he could only sigh, shake his head, and just watch the battle between the leader and Itachi Uchiha. Not a single person placed a bet. Shin felt rather bored. If Itachi Uchiha went all out, he wasn't incapable of fighting Pain. It all depended on who could last longer. The one who lasted longer would surely win. The reason? Because both their bodies couldn't support prolonged combat. Itachi Uchiha's body was failing, and Nagato's body wasn't much better. It all came down to who could endure longer. Chapter 405, Pain vs. Itachi. A great battle was about to erupt. Shin watched with considerable interest, as did the other Akatsuki members. They all knew Itachi Uchiha was powerful, no one dared claim they could easily defeat him. And Pain was the Akatsuki's leader. Some members, in particular, had been thoroughly crushed by Pain before. Itachi is doomed. Kisame Hashigaki shook his head slightly, a hint of wistfulness in his voice. Even if Itachi could defeat Pain, it would be useless. There was still the even more terrifying Shin Uzumaki here. Fire style, Great Dragon Fire Technique. Itachi Uchiha struck first, a fire dragon roaring towards Pain. However, as it neared Pain, the fire dragon was dispersed by Shinra Tensei. The other paths didn't intervene, only the Deva path engaged Itachi Uchiha. Nagato believed the Deva path's power alone was sufficient to deal with Itachi. Indeed, the Deva path was the powerhouse among the 6 paths of Pain. The combined strength of the other paths couldn't even compare to the Deva path. Universal pull. A gravitational force, like a black hole, erupted from his hand, pulling Itachi Uchiha towards him. Then, a kunai in his hand thrust towards Itachi. Itachi Uchiha, suspended in midair, twisted his body with his core strength, evading Pain's kunai, then kicked towards Pain's head. Shinra Tensei. Before his kick could land on Pain, Itachi Uchiha was sent flying by the repulsive force, landing 10 meters away and sliding back several more. Itachi Uchiha's legs were deeply embedded in the ground. The initial exchange had yielded no advantage, in fact, he had suffered a significant setback. Taking the brunt of Shinra Tensei's repulsive force at close range, Itachi Uchiha showed no external injuries, but his internal organs were already damaged. In this situation, he had to activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. Without it, he wouldn't even get a chance to get close. Besides, the current Pain hadn't even used his full strength, perhaps not even half. Susanoo. He didn't use Amaterasu or Tsukuyami. His opponent possessed the Rinnegan, using Tsukuyami might backfire on him, and Amaterasu was useless. Though hailed as the strongest physical attack, its actual effectiveness was rather lackluster. If combined with Kagetsuchi, it would be quite useful. But simple Amaterasu would just be repelled, so he could only use the ultimate technique, Susanoo. Susanoo consumed a vast amount of power, and in his current condition, Itachi truly wasn't suited to use it again. But this was a desperate moment. Fight, and there was still a chance to live, a chance to see Sasuke again. Don't fight, and it was a dead end. That's some serious pressure. Haiden couldn't help but retreat a considerable distance. This colossal Susanoo, a single blow could probably crush him into a meat patty. Though even being turned into a meat patty wouldn't kill him, Haiden didn't want to experience what that felt like. Besides, if he was turned into a meat patty, even Kakuzu couldn't save him. After all, how could one stitch a meat patty back together? Actually, I'd love to fight Itachi. What a pity I won't get the chance. Deidara said with a regretful expression. Deidara, Itachi Uchiha has a younger brother. You can go bully him, Shin said to Deidara with a smile. Itachi's younger brother? He's just a weakling. Kisame Hashigaki was quite disdainful. He had met Sasuke Uchiha before, but in Kisame's eyes, Sasuke Uchiha was just a weakling. Weakling? Shin glanced at Kisame Hashigaki. Sasuke Uchiha indeed had various flaws, but calling him a weakling was a bit much. Perhaps Kisame's current impression of Sasuke Uchiha was still stuck in the past. Boom! The Akatsuki base was completely destroyed. This was normal. With Pain and Itachi Uchiha fighting, it would be strange if the Akatsuki base wasn't destroyed. Chibaku Tensei. Pain's hands clasped together. He created a black sphere of highly concentrated chakra, then threw it into the sky. An endless gravitational force emanated from the black sphere. The ground began to tremble, and countless debris were sucked into the sky. Holy shit! Haydn couldn't help but curse, then quickly hugged a nearby tree. But soon, the tree was also pulled into the sky by the gravitational force. No choice, he had to run quickly, preferably out of this gravitational field. Doesn't the leader care about us at all? Deidara complained. Fortunately, they were already far away, so they weren't sucked away by the gravity. They were still relatively safe. Shin stood in place, completely unaffected. Itachi Uchiha was desperately resisting the gravitational force. Actually, if he had destroyed the small black sphere when Chibaku Tensei was first cast, it would have been fine. The small black sphere was the source of the gravity. Unfortunately, Itachi Uchiha probably hadn't thought of this countermeasure yet. And once it formed, ordinary attacks couldn't destroy Chibaku Tensei unless one could shatter it in a single blow. Facing Chibaku Tensei, it was naturally best to resolve it as early as possible, otherwise, it would become very difficult to deal with later. Chibaku Tensei gradually formed a small planet. Seeing this, Itachi Uchiha knew he couldn't let it continue. Tatsuka Blade. The Susanoo wielded the flame-like Tatsuka Blade, thrusting it towards the Chibaku Tensei with all its might. The Tatsuka Blade had no physical form and could extend. This depended on Itachi Uchiha's chakra. Boom! The Tatsuka Blade pierced the surface of the Chibaku Tensei but didn't penetrate its core, so it failed to destroy it. Itachi Uchiha couldn't help but kneel on one knee, his body almost at its limit. Itachi Uchiha desperately consumed soldier pills, suppressing all the chakra within his body. Compared to Itachi Uchiha, Pain's expression was far too calm, looking as if it were effortless. But, was it really so? In a hidden location, Nagato's emaciated body panted heavily. Chibaku Tensei consumed an immense amount of chakra. Neither of them was doing well, but Nagato's condition was better than Itachi Uchiha's. In terms of raw power, Nagato was still stronger. Fall. Pain uttered softly. The Chibaku Tensei in the sky crashed down towards Itachi Uchiha. Itachi Uchiha's expression changed. He hadn't expected Pain to actually control the Chibaku Tensei to crash down. If Itachi Uchiha had been sealed within the Chibaku Tensei earlier, it definitely wouldn't be crashing down. Instead, Itachi would have been sent into the sky. However, Itachi Uchiha had resisted and wasn't sealed within it. So, Pain could only use the Chibaku Tensei as an attack. Otherwise, the Chibaku Tensei he had painstakingly created would have been a waste of effort. Such a massive object crashing down, even Susanoo's defense would be instantly shattered. As for choosing to escape? There was no chance. The area covered was so large, escape was impossible. It would only reduce his chances of survival. Right now, he could only try to withstand it. Chapter 406, The Death of Itachi Uchiha. Should we run? Deidara, watching the Chibaku Tensei plummet from the sky, asked Sasori beside him. Too late. But we're far enough away, we should be fine, Kakuzu said calmly. Kakuzu wasn't afraid. He had 5 hearts, after all. He wouldn't die so easily. Haydn, though shocked, was just like Kakuzu. Relying on his immortality, he was quite calm. I should probably seek shelter with Shindano. Deidara thought for a moment, then quickly moved to Shin's side, standing with him. He believed staying with Shin would be safer, at least he wouldn't have to worry about dying from collateral damage. Crash! Itachi Uchiha's Susanoo shattered instantly. The falling Chibaku Tensei effortlessly destroyed Susanoo. Is he dead? Nagato stood in the sky, carefully searching for any sign of Itachi Uchiha. Right now, Nagato needed to confirm if Itachi was dead. Is Itachi dead? Kisame was also very concerned about Itachi Uchiha's fate. Not yet. But he's lost an eye, Shin spoke up. Just now, facing that almost certain death attack, Itachi Uchiha had used Izanagi, sacrificing one eye to survive. And Itachi Uchiha still intended to escape. Yamatsu Hirasaka. Shin opened a pitch-black spatial gate in front of him, reached in, and in an instant, pulled a figure out.
Itachi Uchiha, running away like this isn't very honorable,
Shin said to Itachi, whom he had tossed aside. Itachi Uchiha looked up, his gaze fixed on Shin.
He hadn't expected to be caught by Shin. Was that space-time ninjutsu just now? Summoning jutsu. Itachi Uchiha didn't give up resisting. He summoned a crow. One of the crow's eyes was a Mangekyo Sharingan. Koto Amatsukami. The Mangekyo Sharingan Shisui Uchiha had entrusted to Itachi Uchiha, its ability, Koto Amatsukami, was finally activated by Itachi. Trying to change my will?
Even if Shisui Uchiha were alive, he couldn't do it, let alone you. Shin's eyes erupted with immense ocular power, crushing the Mangekyo Sharingan.
What kind of eyes are those? Itachi looked at Shin's eyes, somewhat horrified. 9 Tomo, Rinnegan patterns, and yet the eyes were blue. A dying man doesn't need to know. Shin calmly produced a black rod, one created from yin-yang release. Shin-sama, could you please wait a moment? White Zetsu spoke up hesitantly at this moment. Shin, hearing this, looked towards White Zetsu.
His gaze made White Zetsu's scalp tingle. White Zetsu somewhat regretted speaking up now. He had just received a message from Obito, asking him to dissuade Shin from killing Itachi Uchiha.
White Zetsu, after much hesitation, finally spoke. However, after speaking, White Zetsu felt regret. Will Shin Uzumaki kill me? Give me one good reason. Shin didn't kill White Zetsu casually as it had imagined. White Zetsu looked at the other Akatsuki members around, indicating it wasn't convenient to speak. After all, Obito's identity was still hidden, it wasn't good to expose it. Shin, can Itachi Uchiha be handed over to me for execution? Just then, Pain appeared and asked Shin. All right.
Shin could sense Pain's killing intent.
It didn't matter who killed Itachi.
Pain held a black rod identical to Shin's and thrust it towards Itachi Uchiha's heart. As the black rod was about to pierce Itachi, Pain's expression suddenly changed. He stared intently at Itachi. The Itachi he had pierced had turned into a flock of crows. Meaning, he had fallen for a genjutsu just now.
Impressive. You managed to fool me. Pain looked up at Itachi's true body. To think Itachi could deceive him with genjutsu just now. Looks like Itachi Uchiha is definitely going to die. I can't save him. White Zetsu, seeing this scene, also understood that Itachi Uchiha was likely unsavable.
Pain was determined to kill Itachi.
But that wasn't important. What was important was that Shin Uzumaki also had no intention of letting Itachi Uchiha live. So, Itachi Uchiha was definitely going to die. No need to cause trouble. As for Obito's instructions, well, he had spoken up to stop it. He couldn't be blamed for failing. Itachi Uchiha was at his wit's end. The crow clone illusion he used earlier had consumed almost all his chakra. One eye was blind from using Izanagi, so Susanoo was also unusable. Itachi Uchiha couldn't use Susanoo without eyes like Madara Uchiha could. Besides, even if he consumed his life force now, he couldn't use Susanoo, his body's chakra couldn't be squeezed out anymore. Though there was no way out, Itachi Uchiha's expression didn't change much, he still managed to maintain a calm demeanor. Itachi Uchiha, I admire your strength. Unfortunately, you are a traitor. Pain's voice was icy.
Seriously, Pain did appreciate Itachi Uchiha's strength. But he had betrayed the Akatsuki, and he also needed to make an example of someone.
Itachi Uchiha closed his eyes.
Towards Pain's black rod, which was piercing towards him again, he offered no resistance this time.
He still had one Sharingan left. Itachi Uchiha could activate his Izanagi again and struggle a bit more. But he didn't do so. Futile struggle. He couldn't escape anymore.
Let him just die at Pain's hands. He regretted not seeing Sasuke one last time. Itachi Uchiha had planned to go to Sasuke and settle everything. Unfortunately, there was no chance now. Itachi Uchiha closed his eyes and fell to the ground, his body already devoid of all breath, gradually growing cold.
So Itachi Uchiha's dead. Hayden's eyes held little emotion. Hayden had no feelings for the other Akatsuki members.
Or rather, the others were the same as for comrades, that was just a nominal title. They could only be said to be partners who cooperated reasonably well. I don't care what you all think in your hearts, but I don't want another person to end up in this situation, Pain warned the other Akatsuki members.
It was unknown how much effect this warning would have on these S-rank missing nin.
But Pain's warning had been issued.
Whoever dared to disobey would be killed without mercy. Shin Uzumaki, I will personally retrieve the Nine Tails. Pain turned to Shin. Oh, is that so? Then I wish you success.
Just don't get yourself killed in the process.
Shin chuckled. If the Nine Tails returned to Konoha, would Pain invade the village? Shin doubted it. The Nine Tails hated Konoha. Chapter 407, Don't you have any self-awareness?
After Itachi Uchiha's death, Shin returned to the land of whirlpools. Pain took full responsibility for the Nine Tails situation. Shin decided not to interfere further, letting Pain handle it. If Pain proved incapable, Shin would step in and recapture the Nine Tails himself.
Upon returning home, Kushina immediately pounced on Shin from behind. Where have you been? I've been looking for you all day. Weren't you angry with me? Why are you looking for me now? Shin asked Kushina with a smile. Humph. Was I? Kushina snorted lightly, then playfully punched Shin's arm. You still haven't told me what you were doing. I went to the Akatsuki. Nagato couldn't keep a handle on the Nine Tails, and Itachi Uchiha set it free. Shin didn't hide anything from Kushina.
It wasn't like he was out womanizing or doing anything shameful, there was no need for secrecy.
If he had been womanizing, he certainly wouldn't tell Kushina.
But Shin wouldn't do that anyway. After all, the most beautiful women were already in the land of whirlpools, why would he need to look elsewhere?
It's only been a few days, and the Nine Tails already escaped? Kushina was speechless. Didn't Nagato possess the Rinnegan? What a waste. Although Nagato possessed the Rinnegan, he couldn't wield its true power. If he could, Itachi Uchiha wouldn't have been able to free the Nine Tails. Do we need to go capture the Nine Tails again? Kushina asked Shin.
If Shin went after the Nine Tails again, she could tag along and have some fun with him. The thought made her quite happy.
Nah.
Let Pain handle this himself. Though I don't know if he's up to the task.
Shin wasn't interested in going.
He wanted to relax in the land of whirlpools, or more accurately, indulge in a life of leisure for a while.
Where are Makoto and the others? Shin asked Kushina. In the kitchen. Are you looking for them? Kushina pouted, a hint of jealousy in her voice. In the kitchen? Is Tsunade in the kitchen too? Shin blanched. If Tsunade was in the kitchen, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yes, Tsunade is in the kitchen.
And she might have lost her mind.
She actually wants to learn how to cook. How utterly delusional. That sounds disastrous. She's not exactly cut out for culinary arts, is she? Shin agreed.
Though Kushina's words were harsh, they were true.
Tsunade's cooking was worse than poison. Shin wondered what had gotten into her. Was she really losing her mind, as Kushina suggested?
Just as Shin and Kushina were discussing Tsunade, she emerged from the kitchen, or rather, she was kicked out. Makoto, her face impassive, pushed Tsunade out of the kitchen and slammed the door shut, locking it.
Tsunade couldn't get back in unless she broke down the door, which she wasn't about to do. Makoto, I can't believe you'd team up with Kushina to look down on me.
Tsunade pounded on the door indignantly.
Tsunade-ne, I apologize, but we're running low on ingredients. We can't afford for you to waste any more. You simply have no talent for cooking.
Makoto's emotionless voice came from inside the kitchen.
Ha 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 ha. This is hilarious. Even Makoto is fed up with you. Kushina burst out laughing. Seeing Tsunade's frustrated expression made her incredibly happy.
It was as refreshing as a cool breeze on a summer day.
"Shut up, or I'll punch you," Tsunade threatened Kushina, clenching her fists.
"Pfft, go ahead. I'm not afraid of you."
Kushina wasn't intimidated by Tsunade's threat. Instead, she angered her further, as if deliberately trying to pick a fight. No, not as if. Kushina was deliberately angering Tsunade. Let's see if I don't beat you until you cry today." Tsunade clenched her fists and lunged at Kushina.
Seeing the incoming punch, Shin reached out and caught her fist.
"Tsunade, watch where you're aiming." "Shin, I'm asking you, and I want an honest answer."
Tsunade looked up, her gaze fixed intently on Shin.
"Rest assured, ask me anything." "All right then. Tell me, do I really have no talent for cooking?"
"Well..." Shin scratched his head.
"Don't you have any self-awareness? Do you even need to ask?" How should he answer Tsunade now? Encourage her and say her cooking talent wasn't bad?
The thought briefly crossed Shin's mind, then he quickly dismissed it.
Encourage her? Impossible. It was better to let Tsunade give up on cooking.
Shin didn't want to eat her dark cuisine, no, it should be called death cuisine.
How could he gently tell Tsunade without hurting her pride? That was the question. Ahem, Tsunade, why do you want to learn how to cook anyway? Shin asked Tsunade.
First, understand her motives, then figure out how to deal with the situation. Shin thought he was being quite clever.
Because I'm bored every day, so I want to find something to do. Is that a problem? Ahem, Tsunade, cooking isn't a good way to pass the time. The fumes will ruin your complexion. You'll become an old hag. Oh? So, Shin, you're saying I'm an old hag? Makoto suddenly appeared behind Shin like a ghost.
Shin quickly turned around and saw Makoto's icy expression.
Makoto, of course I didn't mean that. Makoto is a beautiful master chef. Shin quickly placated Makoto.
The cooking fumes and old hag comments were just Shin trying to scare Tsunade.
After all, with her perfect sage body, what did she have to fear?
Unfortunately, he hadn't scared Tsunade, and now it seemed he had offended Makoto.
He had to forget about dissuading Tsunade for now and focus on comforting Makoto. Put. Makoto couldn't help but laugh. I was just joking. Did you have to be so nervous? She said to Shin. Of course, I was nervous. What if my precious Makoto really got angry? Ugh. Kushina and Tsunade shot Shin disdainful looks. So cheesy. I've got goosebumps. You too, get a room. Kushina said, disgustedly pushing Shin and Makoto. Makoto, I'll show you. Even without your guidance, I can still become a great chef. Tsunade declared to Makoto. Hearing Tsunade's declaration, Shin sighed and facepalmed. Looks like Tsunade hasn't given up yet. What will it take to make her give up? He was most afraid of Tsunade asking him to try her cooking. That was truly terrifying. Chapter 408, Karen's Revenge on Hanabi.
The sun shone brightly. Shin lay on a lounge chair in the courtyard, Mei Terumi nestled in his arms, eating watermelon slices Makoto had prepared, while looking sympathetically at Konan.
Konan had been captured by Tsunade and was currently being forced to teach her how to cook. Unable to learn from Makoto, Tsunade had turned to Konan, whose culinary skills were only slightly better than Tsunade's. Poor Konan. Teaching someone with zero culinary talent has to be torture. Shin sighed.
It was like teaching a first grader advanced calculus, the difficulty was immense.
Shin, I just made tomato and egg soup. Come try it. Tsunade's words struck Shin like a death knell. He shivered, his hair standing on end. Ahem, I need to go check on Karen, Hinata, and Hanabi's training. Let Mei try it. Shin tossed Mei Terumi to the wolves, Tsunade, and fled. Mei Terumi gritted her teeth.
If Shin were still here, she'd bite a chunk out of him. She'd even change her name if she didn't. It wasn't that Shin was overreacting.
Tsunade's tomato and egg soup was purple and constantly bubbling. It reminded Shin of some evil sorcerer's potion. Shin definitely didn't want to taste that.
He had no choice but to run. As for throwing Mei to the wolves, well, that just showed Shin had no shame.
Fleeing to the training grounds, Shin saw Karen, Hinata, and Hanabi sitting there, happily sipping watermelon juice.
Well.
You said you were coming to train, but you're slacking off here?
Busted.
Shin placed his hands on Hinata and Hanabi's heads.
Ah. It was Big Sister who taught me to slack off.
It has nothing to do with me.
Hanabi quickly tried to shift the blame to her older sister, Hinata. Having such a sister was truly Hinata's misfortune.
Heh, you think I'd believe that? Hinata is well behaved, she would never teach you to slack off. Shin stroked Hinata's smooth, long hair.
Long-haired Hinata was truly beautiful. And now that Hinata had fully matured, she was a stunning beauty. Hearing Shin say that, Hinata felt a sweetness in her heart.
She couldn't help but lean back against Shin.
Her face flushed red.
Though still shy, she no longer fainted from embarrassment. Shin-sama, I'm a little dizzy.
I think I have heat stroke.
Karen swayed, then collapsed into Shin's arms.
Heat stroke? Shin asked, looking at the feigning unconsciousness Karen. Karen didn't speak, just nuzzled her head against Shin's chest.
Oh no! My glasses fell off. I can't see.
Where are my glasses? Karen suddenly exclaimed, her small hands fumbling around.
Your glasses are on the ground. Why are you groping Shin nii?
You pervert! Hanabi glared at Karen, then kindly picked up the glasses and handed them to Karen.
Karen gritted her teeth. Is Hanabi deliberately trying to ruin her plan? Karen was right. Hanabi was deliberately sabotaging her.
Who asked her to be so theatrical?
Alright, Hanabi, that's enough rest. Time to train. Hinata gently pulled away from Shin's embrace.
Leaving his embrace felt a little empty.
Train now? Can't we rest a little longer?
Hanabi looked pitifully at Hinata.
No. You little bum, all you do is slack off. Karen smacked Hanabi's shoulder. If Hanabi was going to ruin her plans, Karen would return the favor. Hinata, you rest for a bit. I'll guide Hanabi.
After saying that, Karen dragged Hanabi off to train, supervising her with the strictest methods.
You're just getting back at me. Hanabi complained. Yes, I am. Karen nodded, not denying it at all.
She was getting revenge, there was no need to deny it.
Just you wait. Hanabi conceded defeat this time, but she wouldn't forget.
She'd get revenge later when she had the chance.
I'll be waiting.
You don't scare me, Karen scoffed dismissively.
Could Hanabi really do anything to get back at her? Karen didn't believe it.
But Hanabi was a cunning little imp, she'd have to be careful.
Karen strictly supervised Hanabi's training.
Though harsh, she didn't hold back on teaching Hanabi what she needed to know, including sealing techniques.
Unfortunately, Hanabi couldn't learn them. Without the talent, even the best instruction was useless. It was like Tsunade's talent for cooking. Makoto's cooking skills were arguably the best in the entire shinobi world, yet she still couldn't teach Tsunade.
Shin sat to the side, chatting with Hinata.
Hinata wasn't training, they had primarily come out to guide Hanabi's training. Hinata's strength had likely reached its limit.
Even with diligent training, she wouldn't see much improvement. It wasn't until evening that Shin stood up, taking Karen, Hinata, and Hanabi back home.
As soon as he returned, Shin saw Mei's demonic, scary expression. Mei, you actually drank it? Shin couldn't help but ask. Did she really drink Tsunade's tomato and egg soup? Guess. Mei Terumi grimaced.
Seeing her expression, Shin already had a good idea. She really had drunk it. But Shin guessed she'd probably been forced to.
Otherwise, he didn't think Mei would willingly drink it. What do you think I should do to you?
Mei Terumi took out a kunai and gestured threateningly at Shin, feeling an increasingly uncontrollable urge to stab him.
Don't get excited. Look, I'll compensate you with myself, alright?
Shin said, putting on an expression of great sacrifice. If Mei-chan doesn't want you, I'll take you, Karen couldn't help but interject.
He's already mine.
Mei Terumi huffed lightly.
However, her words immediately drew dissatisfaction from Kushina, Makoto, Tsunade, and the others.
Had she claimed Shin for herself? So, Mei immediately faced a barrage of criticism from the other women, and it was precisely their attack that allowed Shin to escape this predicament. Shin felt a little bad for Mei Terumi, who'd made such a sacrifice.
Chapter 409, Tobi joins the Akatsuki. At the Akatsuki base, Obito confronted Nagato Uzumaki.
Why did you kill Itachi Uchiha? Even though he let the Ninetales escape, he still had his uses.
Obito's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. He was unhappy that Nagato had killed Itachi.
If Shin had been the one to kill Itachi, Obito wouldn't dare question him.
But Nagato was different. In Obito's mind, Nagato was just a pawn, someone he looked down upon. My actions do not require your judgment, Obito Uchiha, Nagato said coldly.
Well, what did you say?
Obito was stunned. He hadn't expected Nagato to know his identity. Who told him? Only Black and White Zetsu and Shin Uzumaki knew his true identity. It couldn't have been Black and White Zetsu, so it must have been Shin Uzumaki. Obito seethed with resentment. He couldn't believe Shin Uzumaki had exposed his true identity.
It was impossible not to be furious.
I already know your identity. Is there any need to hide it? I never thought the once unknown loser from Konoha would one day masquerade as Madara Uchiha.
Indeed, Nagato had already investigated Obito's past.
Knowing Obito's name, investigating him wasn't difficult. Of course, Nagato only knew about Obito's time in Konoha, he was unaware of other details.
His knowledge was limited.
Without White Zetsu's help, his own investigation wouldn't yield much. The expression under Obito's mask was grim.
He'd even forgotten about questioning Nagato for killing Itachi, that was no longer important.
Even if Itachi was useful, it wasn't as critical as Nagato knowing his true identity. Was it Shin Uzumaki who told you? Obito asked Nagato.
So what if it was?
Nagato looked at Obito indifferently. Did Obito Uchiha really think he could go settle scores with Shin Uzumaki? Nagato didn't think Obito was capable of that. Even he trembled before Shin Uzumaki. Obito's expression relaxed. He suddenly realized that even if Nagato knew, it didn't really matter.
As long as he could control Nagato to complete the plan, everything else, like his identity being exposed, was irrelevant as long as it didn't affect the Eye of the Moon plan.
Knowing my identity doesn't matter. My goal has always been peace in the shinobi world, Obito said calmly to Nagato. Though I can't say the same for Shin Uzumaki. Do you really think he desires peace? Nagato narrowed his eyes at Obito.
This was an attempt to sow discord.
It seemed Shin Uzumaki and Obito Uchiha weren't on good terms. However, Nagato was curious. Why would Shin Uzumaki cooperate with Obito Uchiha? It didn't make sense. It wasn't that Nagato looked down on Obito Uchiha, but Obito truly wasn't qualified. Their power levels were too disparate, how could they possibly cooperate? Cooperation only existed between equals, or at least those with comparable strength. Could cooperation exist when there was such a vast power difference?
I hope you can capture the tailed beasts as soon as possible. Only then can we revive the Ten-Tails quickly, and then use the Ten-Tails to intimidate the great villages and achieve true peace. After saying this to Nagato, Obito prepared to leave. Nagato, knowing his true identity had been a significant blow, Obito needed to leave and calm down.
Wait.
Just as Obito was about to leave, Nagato stopped him.
What else? Obito Uchiha asked Nagato, frowning.
Regarding the capture of the tailed beasts, you should also contribute.
Nagato stared intently at Obito. He wouldn't let Obito stay out of it. Besides, Obito's motives weren't pure, otherwise, why would he impersonate Madara Uchiha? Of course. I'll join the Akatsuki under a different identity. Obito gave Nagato a deep look, then left. After leaving, Obito appeared in a desolate wilderness, his eyes filled with terrifying rage. Damn you, Shin Uzumaki! What exactly are you trying to do? Obito believed Shin had deliberately revealed his identity to Nagato, likely for some ulterior motive. However, Obito was completely mistaken. Shin hadn't deliberately told Nagato, he had simply let it slip unintentionally. Truly, just an unintentional slip. Shin had no need to scheme against Obito. If it were Madara Uchiha, Shin might be interested in some plotting, but he had no interest in dealing with Obito. After a period of impotent rage, Obito gave up. His anger was useless, he couldn't do anything against Shin Uzumaki. A few days later, Obito joined the Akatsuki as a new member, albeit unofficially, like a substitute. He still used the alias Toby, acting like a goofy clown. The other Akatsuki members didn't take him seriously, dismissing him as a weakling with only space-time ninjutsu worth mentioning. Yes, Toby had demonstrated his Kamui ability. After all, if you wanted to join the Akatsuki, you had to show some skill, otherwise, the other members wouldn't accept you. Temporarily taking Itachi Uchiha's place, Toby was partnered with Kisame Hashigaki. Actually, if anyone in the Akatsuki knew Toby wasn't normal, it was Kisame Hashigaki. Kisame had been recruited into the Akatsuki by Obito and knew his true identity. That is, the Madara Uchiha persona. Shortly after Toby joined the Akatsuki, Pain assigned him a major task, to capture the 8 tails. The 5 tails had been captured not long ago. Now, only the 6 tails, 7 tails, 8 tails, and 9 tails remained. The mission to capture the 6 tails was given to Deidara and Sasori. The 7 tails mission went to Kakuzu and Haiden. Kisame and Toby were responsible for the 8 tails. Toby maintained his goofy facade, but the expression hidden beneath his mask was terrifyingly grim. Others might not know, but he certainly did. The current 8 tails was essentially Shin Uzumaki's property, and had been for a long time. It was clear Pain was doing this deliberately. It seemed Nagato had his own agenda, he wasn't so easily controlled. Obito felt he needed to come up with a plan to control Nagato. If necessary, he would eliminate him. Of course, that was a last resort. Nagato was still very useful, Obito didn't want to get rid of him. He hoped Nagato wouldn't force his hand. If pushed too far, Obito wouldn't hesitate to eliminate Nagato. As for whether he had the strength to do so, Obito believed he could. He had some understanding of Nagato's condition, Nagato didn't have much longer to live anyway. Chapter 410, Obito backs down. White Zetsu, I have a task for you. Obito called out to White Zetsu. When White Zetsu was called by Obito, its heart skipped a beat. A very bad feeling washed over it. What is it? White Zetsu turned around and asked Obito Uchiha. Its intuition told it this was definitely not good news. Contact Shin Uzumaki for me. I don't want to make a trip to the land of whirlpools. Sure enough, after hearing Obito's request, White Zetsu knew it wasn't good. If possible, White Zetsu truly didn't want to meet Shin. For no other reason than the fact that Shin's presence was too overwhelming. Look at Black Zetsu, it was hiding and avoiding all contact with Shin Uzumaki. White Zetsu didn't know that Black Zetsu was doing so mainly out of fear of being exposed. Actually, Black Zetsu didn't realize that its identity was no secret to Shin, it held no secrets from him. Alright. White Zetsu stared at Obito for a moment, then sighed helplessly and agreed. It took out the flying thunder god kunai from its pocket and infused it with chakra. Far away in the land of whirlpools, Shin clearly sensed White Zetsu trying to contact him. Can't even take a nap in peace. Shin stood up, then instantly left the land of whirlpools and appeared before White Zetsu. White Zetsu, what's so important that you had to disturb my sleep? Shin asked White Zetsu, his gaze rather unfriendly. Shin-sama, please don't blame me. It was him who wanted to find you. White Zetsu immediately pointed at Obito, shamelessly selling him out. Then White Zetsu slipped away. It didn't want to face Shin Uzumaki, it was too dangerous. After White Zetsu left, Shin's gaze fell on Obito Uchiha. You were looking for me? If you have something to say it quickly. You told Nagato my true identity. Obito's tone was accusatory. Oh, that? Is it such a big deal? Or are you looking for trouble with me? If you want trouble, you're welcome to try. Shin smiled faintly, looking at Obito with amusement. Obito's expression darkened. Though hidden behind his mask, Shin could sense Obito's displeasure. Why did you reveal my identity to Nagato? Obito asked Shin, suppressing his anger. Does it matter? Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe me, would you? If I said it was an accident, would you buy it? Although Shin had indeed revealed it unintentionally, he was certain Obito wouldn't believe him. Obito definitely thought he had done it on purpose. I hope you don't do anything to hinder the plan, Obito said, narrowing his eyes at Shin. Are you trying to tell me what to do? Shin asked Obito with a cold smile. Feeling Shin's icy gaze, Obito felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if he were being stared at by something terrifying, even his breathing became heavy. I didn't mean that. Obito finally backed down. But he felt incredibly frustrated. Shin Uzumaki was a major obstacle, one he didn't know how to overcome. He truly didn't understand why Madara Uchiha would cooperate with Shin Uzumaki instead of eliminating this unpredictable element. Actually, Obito didn't know that it wasn't that Madara didn't want to, but that he simply couldn't. If Madara had the ability, he certainly wouldn't have wanted to leave Shin as a threat. But Madara lacked that ability, which was why he reluctantly cooperated with Shin. Though frustrated, Obito didn't have the courage to confront Shin. He hadn't been a match for Shin Uzumaki before, and even now that he was stronger, Obito still wasn't confident. Obito felt that to defeat Shin Uzumaki, he would at least need to become the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. So Obito continued to endure, waiting until he gathered all 9-tailed beasts and revived the Ten-Tails. Did you come looking for me just for this trivial matter? Shin asked Obito Uchiha. Hearing Shin's words, Obito felt so frustrated he wanted to cough up blood. Trivial matter? Do you think revealing my identity to Nagato is a trivial matter? Suppressing his anger, Obito said with a grim face, No. I came to discuss the matter of the 8 tails with you. White Zetsu had told Obito that the 8 tails was actually in Shin's hands. So, to deal with the 8 tails, he definitely had to find Shin Uzumaki. Otherwise, Obito wouldn't have sought out Shin. As for his earlier questioning of Shin, that was just Obito losing his temper. The 8 tails? You want to capture the 8 tails? Shin glanced at Obito. Yes. This was the mission Pain had given him. If he couldn't complete it, how would Nagato view him? Even though his Madara Uchiha persona had been exposed, Obito still wanted to maintain his image of being powerful. Only by displaying great strength could he intimidate Nagato. Otherwise, Obito feared Nagato might cause trouble behind his back. The 8 tails is with me, he's practically my subordinate. I can't just hand him over to you. Go capture him yourself. Whether you succeed or not depends on your own abilities. After saying that, Shin turned and left. Obito had anticipated this. He knew Shin Uzumaki wouldn't easily hand over the 8 tails. But now that he had informed Shin Uzumaki, and Shin had agreed, he could make a move on the 8 tails without fearing Shin would cause trouble. This was the main point. He was primarily afraid Shin Uzumaki would cause him trouble. His purpose in meeting Shin Uzumaki had been achieved. Next, he would find Kisame Hashigaki and capture the 8 tails together. Although Shin Uzumaki had agreed, Obito still didn't dare to be careless. What if Shin Uzumaki tried to sabotage him? The possibility might be small, but it wasn't non-existent. So, it was safer to bring Kisame Hashigaki alone. If he couldn't capture the 8 tails himself, Kisame Hashigaki could help. Kisame Hashigaki was someone Obito had personally chosen. Obito fully recognized Kisame's strength. However, Obito didn't know the Eight Tails' current whereabouts. He still needed to find White Zetsu. White Zetsu definitely knew where the Eight Tails was. Once he learned the Eight Tails' location, he would make his move. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.